Now, subhanAllah, why is this so important when we're talking about the tactics of Shaytan, particularly when it comes to exploiting our insecurities? Because if you look into the depth of the literature from the ulama in this regard, the ulama, when they speak about tazkiyatun nafs, the purification of the soul, they try to get you to dig as deep as possible into where you found yourself first inclining towards certain things. As Imam Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah says, if you fall, if you get tripped up, you want to go back to the place that tripped you up. Find the object that tripped you up. Find where your garment got caught on. Don't just rip it and keep moving forward. And a lot of times before a person had a desire to be more beautiful, they had a fear of undesirability. Before a person got into this level of trying to have more and more wealth, they had a fear of the implications of poverty. And when you actually seek to identify where you used to get your sense of validation from, where you used to get your sense of meaning from, and then the desires that came after that, you'll find that there might be an insecurity there that you have as a human being. Because every single one of us has something there, a fear. And I'm not saying you go back and you yell at your parents and you say that you used to do this to me and that's why I now I'm always seeking approval from people because you used to talk to me this way, or I grew up in this environment and it was because of this. I'm not saying make it an excuse. I'm saying find what caused you these insecurities and don't even let the shaitan in there. Solve the insecurities themselves because the desires will come after. Why is it that people crave attention? Well, what was the deficit before that led them to crave attention? Why is it that a person assigns their dignity and their sense of validation in certain things? Well, what was the deficit before that shaitan might be preying upon? And subhanAllah, I want to end here with something very profound in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the fear factor of the shaitan to try to stop you from moving towards the right direction because of fears that he will manipulate, and also the desires that he will embellish that feast upon your greatest insecurities. But he also talks about the centrality of Tawheed, the centrality of monotheism in all of this. What is the greatest sense of validation? What is the way that you overcome these insecurities? There are individual pathways that you look to them, and you start to interrupt and say, I need to solve this problem and stop this leak that the shaitan is preying upon, that the devil is preying upon. But then there is a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gives you a new sense of validation. What do I mean by that? فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِي. Don't be afraid of them, be afraid of me. فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. SubhanAllah, in this ayah in particular, and honestly I heard it in Salat al-Fajr and I was thinking about this particular ayah. فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. Don't fear them, but fear me. It's interesting here because that ayah came down when Allah changed the Qibla from Jerusalem to Mecca. And you know what they said to the Prophet ﷺ? Some of the people of the book, they said, اشتاق الرجل إلى قومه وإلى دين قومه. The man must have missed his people and missed the religion of his people. To suggest that the Prophet ﷺ was going to incline towards paganism by facing Mecca and not facing Jerusalem anymore. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about what they say. Don't worry about the comments they're going to throw your way. It doesn't matter if they excommunicate you. It doesn't matter if they say you're not a prophet of Allah. It doesn't matter. Seek your validation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the highest level that Allah mentions of the believers, وَلَا يَخَافُونَ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. They don't fear the blame of the blamer because they start to assign a sense of self-worth through their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنظُرُ إِلَىٰ صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَىٰ أَجْسَادِكُمْ. Allah does not look at your physical beings. He doesn't look at your strength. He doesn't look at your physical attraction. That's not what Allah is interested in. You know, subhanAllah, we talk about Islam, emphasizing fitness. Islam doesn't emphasize fitness so that other people could look at you and admire your muscle tone. Islam doesn't emphasize fitness so that you could look the part. It emphasizes it because of the amana of the body to do better for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah doesn't look at that, but Allah looks at your hearts and Allah looks at your deeds. إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَإِلَىٰ أَعْمَالِكُمْ. That's what Allah looks at.